Remember a few reviews ago when I was talking about the movie Blood Bags, and I said how that movie had like tons of potential, but it just missed the mark. So when I sat down to watch this movie today, I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of in the back of my head. I didn't know what to expect, but I'm happy to say Hey guys, welcome to Happywax TV. So I could probably talk about this movie for an hour, and the way I like to ramble, it might just happen. Let's hope not. The movie's called Rabid. It's out December 13th. I was lucky enough to see an early copy of it. Wow, I'll tell you, I went into this movie not really knowing much about it. And I'm going to say something, and I'm going to get, have at me in the comment sections. I know I'm supposed to be this horror guy. But I have never seen the original movie. Now I am going to sit down and watch it, especially after watching this one, because I want to compare the two. And I've said this before, I've had a ton of requests of people asking me to do classic horror movie reviews. And that movie is definitely a classic. It's just one that I've never seen. I've seen pieces of it. You know what I mean? I know, David Cronenberg is an absolute Canadian legend. He's got such good movies out. But and Marilyn Chambers is the main star. You know what I mean? But I've never seen it. So I am going to sit down and watch it, especially watching this one. This one's directed by the Soska sisters. They're a couple of twins. They've got a few movies under their belts already. And I'll tell you, I was like more than impressed with this flick. Very quickly, I'll run through the cast here. Laura Vandervoot plays Rose. She's the main star. Then we've got Benjamin Hollingsworth, who plays Brad Hart. He's kind of the love interest. And then Ted Atherton, who plays Dr. William Burroughs. And then basically the other big star is Helenka Talbot as Chelsea. And I'll tell you, like, they're all recognizable faces in this movie, and they all do a pretty good job. There's some of the undercast, like supporting actors and stuff, are kind of, their acting is a little sketchy, but it's more than acceptable in this movie because it's all practical. If there was CGI in this movie, I didn't see any. You know what I mean? Like, I was so friggin' happy with the practical effects in this. It was crazy. But let me quickly get to the synopsis here. So the quiet Rose works for women's fashion clothing designer, hoping to be a designer herself. A traffic accident damages her face. She gets experimental stem cell treatment, leaving her stronger and prettier than ever. But there's a side effect. Okay, so that's this movie in a nutshell. Now, if you've seen the original movie, you probably already know this, but I haven't seen it yet. Okay, so I went into this movie not really knowing much about it. I didn't really follow this when news articles would come out and stuff about it. I figured it would just be a movie I'd watch when I get around to it, but I had, an early copy sent to me, which thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it. And man, oh man, I was not disappointed with this flick at all. Now I don't know. I'm assuming they've modernized it. Obviously they have. I do not know how much they followed the original movie, whether they just took bits and pieces of it. Or I don't think it's shot for shot. It can't be. I don't think it is. So, but man, this worked. Basically, it starts off, Rose is a fashion designer or working for a fashion designer. She wants to put out her own line of clothing herself one day and move up the ranks. She's kind of a recluse. She doesn't really let anybody in, more or less a loner. And then she gets invited to one of their parties. She doesn't really want to go, but she does end up going. And then she gets in an argument with, I guess it's not really her boyfriend, but somebody that, potentially could be seeing. So anyways, long story short, they get in an argument. She takes off, gets on her scooter, and then she gets hit by a car in a car accident. I'll tell you, I really did like the pace of the first act because, yeah, it would have been nice to have a little bit more backstory, but they kept it moving. You know what I mean? It was edited great. And the pace was fantastic. I'll tell you something, after the first act, I was thinking to myself, like, how the fuck are they going to keep this pace up? You know what I mean? So, but she gets in this accident. Her face is horribly disfigured, okay? She goes to the hospital. They reveal the what she looks like. Obviously, she's traumatized by it. I mean, you can see it in the trailer. Her face is all mangled up, and you can see most of the inside of her jaw. And it's just, I mean, she's going to be scarred for life, like hugely. Like there's no coming back from this. So, anyways, the hospital releases her. She goes to live with her friend Chelsea, who's a model. Just until she gets heals up a bit, and then she goes in for the surgeries. But she gets introduced, well, she gets told about by Chelsea, this plastic surgeon guy who's doing like, newer kind of experimental, surgeries and stuff using stem cells. And, the stem cell is the big thing right now for de-aging and all that, healing and stuff. So she goes, has the operation done, and end of the first act, she's fine. Her face is back to normal. You know what I mean? Like it's wow. She looks actually better than she did originally, which is hard to say because she's a beautiful woman to begin with. But there's a side effect. And this is the end of Act 1 where she starts having these nightmares about killing people and drinking their blood. I don't really want to say too much more than that. I mean, I don't want to give like this. The second act is more or less her just dealing with the side effect and these nightmares, or so she thinks they're nightmares, of picking people up at the bars and then killing them and drinking their blood. That's kind of the second act of this movie, is just her dealing with this, okay? And then the third act is when all hell breaks loose, okay? And this is where I kind of had some issues with the movie. First of all, it's too long. It really is. It's an hour. It's almost an hour and 50 minutes. And as awesomely paced as the first act is, the second act is slow as fuck. If I'm going to say anything bad about this movie, the pacing is not very good in the second act. Okay, they could have easily trimmed this movie down to a 90-minute movie, even maybe an hour and 20. Just to speed things up, you know what I mean? Like in the second act, still good though, still good. The acting's great, you know what I mean? And there's like you kind of get you see what's going on here, what she's becoming. And again, I'm not giving any spoilers here. I don't want to talk too much about the second and third act, but she does have a bloodlust, and the people that she bites turn rabid, more or less, is what they're calling it. I mean, at the end of the movie, you realize what's going on and what she's actually turning into, but. I mean, again, it's in the trailer, and if you've seen the original, but it's cool to see, you know what I mean? Like, you could call it vampirism if you wanted, you know what I mean? But it's just cool to see her transform into this thing that she becomes, you know what I mean? And that's basically what the second act works on. Am I giving spoilers here? I hope not, because it's all in the trailer. But I'll tell you, the use of practical in this movie, I mean, goddamn, I was so impressed. You know what I mean? Like, the blood is real. I mean, it's a rated R movie, so they didn't hold back. I mean, there's chest gouges. Her face is fucking mangled. They show it up close. You know what I mean? There's like gallons and gallons of blood. You know what I mean? It was just, I was sitting there going, yes. You know what I mean? And I'm big on gore in horror movies. You know what I mean? I don't like overusage of it. You know what I mean? If it gets silly. And I mean, this movie uses a ton of it, but it keeps you wanting more because they semi-refrain from getting to the fucking, the crazy part of it. So I respect that. You know what I mean? And the only other qualm I wish that you know what I mean about this movie is if the second act was shorter, okay, and then the third act is, I guess, longer or explaining more. Like, I wanted to see when the outbreak happens. I guess that's the best way to put it. So everybody she bites goes rabid, okay? And I was dying. It's almost like zombie-like, where they attack people and rip their faces off, and it's great. I just wanted more of that. There's lots in here, but I just wanted more. I wanted a bigger scale outbreak scene. Now, I know this movie, it had an okay budget. I'm just going by what IMDb says. It said it had $5 million budget roughly. Okay, it could have been a little higher, could have been a little lower. I'm not really sure. I'm just going by what's on the page here. So, but I wanted more of that outbreak scene. You know what I mean? More people we don't know or care about just running around ripping people's faces off, and just a bit more of that would have been awesome. You know what I mean? But all in all, this movie is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. I'm going to tell you something else too. Let's go over to the user rating here, and this is what I'm talking about. Okay, this movie gets most of its votes right in the middle. So it's got a whole bunch of 7s, whole bunch of 6s, 5s, and some 4s. Right in the middle, which is pretty much what this movie is. None of this Rootwood bullshit or Ghosts in the Graveyard where it's got like, you know, 600 votes in total and 400 of them are a 10 out of 10 movie. Like, give me a fucking break. You know what I mean? And that's not what happened here. And it's right here in front of your eyes. This is perfect. This is a perfect rating for this movie. To rate this movie myself, I would give it a very strong 7.5. You know what I mean? It was just that it was a second act of this movie that kind of didn't take me out of it, but it could have been just edited a little bit better maybe to speed the pace up, and they easily could have knocked this movie down to a 90-minute movie, and that would have helped substantially. You know what I mean? Like the one thing I can see when more reviews come out and just, you know, read them and see if I'm right, are people are going to say that the pacing in this movie is not very good. They might pick out other spots. I'm saying the second act, it was just a little long in the tooth. And it's a shame because this really is a good movie, but don't let me scare you. I mean, absolutely. Don't let the second act, the pace of it scare you. I mean, watch this fucking movie. It's great. I mean, there's creatures in this movie. There's blood. There's just faces ripping off, being torn off, being eaten. It's fucking great, and it's all practical. If there's CGI in this, I'm sure there's somewhere, but for the most part, it's all practical. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Soska sisters, for making this fucking movie the way you did, because in my eyes, you fucking killed it. You really did. So wow. And I'm kicking myself in the ass because I wasn't really following this movie. You know, I was always going to watch it, but it wasn't something that I was like super excited for. And man, I thought I'll sit down today and I'll give it a go, and we'll see what happens. Man, by the end of it, I was like, fuck, I want more of this. You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. I want more of this Rose character and what she's going to become, and the background story of the clinic, and why they're doing this, and like, you know what I mean? And where do they come from? And it's like, I want more. I want a sequel. You know what I mean? Or a prequel, something. I don't say that very often, but this movie just leaves you wanting more. You know, it's crazy, and not a lot of movies do that to me. So, anyways, I was pleasantly surprised. I'm definitely giving it a strong 7.5, guys. It comes out December 13th. The movie's called Rabid by the Soska sisters. Bravo, girls, you guys fucking nailed it, man. This is what I expect in a horror movie, a low-budgeted horror movie, or a lower budgeted, and I mean, 2 thumbs up, guys. You guys fucking nailed it. So, anyways, check it out when it comes out on the 13th. Yeah, and then come back here and let me know what you think of it, because I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. Till next time, guys, stay scared.